today on CityCast DC. So one of the things I love the most about living in DC is the dynamic cultural makeup of the city. But even still, we can seriously be lacking when it comes to places to buy international groceries and goods. And for a city that prides itself on cultural diversity, this is a real problem. Ike Allen, assistant editor and food writer for the Washingtonian, explains why there are so few international grocery stores in DC, and the ones that we do have that you should know about. Today is Wednesday, September 4th. I'm Bridget Todd, and here's what DC is talking about. So, Ike, it can feel so hard to find any kind of niche or ethnic or international food item or grocery in DC. At the Giant near me, they've got the international aisle, which is mostly fine. However, I really like a specific brand of chili crisp. You know, the one with like the stern lady on the cover. Can't buy that at Giant, so I have to buy that online or find a particular specialty shop that sells it. So my question is, why is DC like this? Why is it so hard to find ethnic groceries, international groceries in DC?
Yeah, absolutely. The Laogan Ma chili crisp is an essential part of my pantry too. So I definitely seek that out anywhere I go. There's a few reasons that DC proper doesn't have the great kind of wide-aisled, really generous ethnic grocery stores that you might find in some other cities. A lot of the concentrations of kind of diasporic communities in the DC area where the scale is big enough to really support a whole grocery store are out in the suburbs. I always recommend, if you do have a car, if you're able to get out to a place like 99 Ranch, Great Wall Supermarket in Rockville or in Falls Church, H Mart, any of the locations in Virginia or Maryland, Patel Brothers, an Indian grocery store chain that has a great location in Northern Virginia. Those are worth exploring, and you could spend a long time there and get a lot of great ingredients. But DC proper is suffering from a little bit of a lack of that. One interesting story on WAMU from the journalist Amanda Michelle Gomez talked about how a lot of Chinese seniors who live in Wah Luck House in DC's Chinatown basically have to get a charter bus to go to Falls Church to do their shopping because there's no full service Chinese grocery store in Chinatown. So that should tell you that we're suffering a little bit from a lack of those kind of grocery stores. Apparently, though, the mayor's task force on Chinatown is working to try to get a traditional Asian grocery store in the neighborhood. So that's something to look forward to.
You mentioned how a lot of these stores are out in the suburbs. You could drive or charter a bus if you had to. Why is that?
There's a few reasons. I think in general, suburbs are the fastest growing and in some places most diverse kinds of municipalities in our country. I mean, from 2009 to 2019, the proportion of non-white people grew nearly twice as fast in the suburbs as urban areas, according to the Census Bureau. And DC metro area has become more diverse, the whole metro area, but it hasn't really become more integrated. So a lot of the kind of immigrant communities are concentrated in kind of far-flung suburbs. And in a lot of cases, that's where more affordable rents are. That's where kind of communities have been coalescing. And there's enough people in one place who shop at a certain kind of grocery store to kind of support that market for the scale to work. I also think, just rents in general and affordability is a big reason for that. DC proper being, so expensive.
One of the things I love about living in DC is how, diverse it is. But I think you're absolutely right that sometimes that integration is really not there. And I think, if you are a senior living in Chinatown, the fact that you would have to charter a bus to get to a store that has the goods that you want and need doesn't really make a lot of sense. It makes me feel like DC is sort of doing something wrong or deficient. And I wonder, I don't think that it's reasonable for seniors to have to do this just to do their grocery shopping. Are there more metro accessible or easier to get to places that we should know about?
Yeah, I mean, I should say that some of the places I mentioned earlier, Great Wall Supermarket, H Mart, if you don't mind walking a little bit, they are technically metro accessible way out on the red line or the orange line. A few places that are more metro accessible that I really like that are technically in the suburbs Hung Fat Market, which is in Wheaton. It's right off the Wheaton Metro, so just a few stops past sort of Tacoma, Silver Spring. They're a Thai grocery store. They have great Thai pantry items. I bet you could probably find chili crisp. You could definitely find all kinds of shrimp paste, fish sauce, fresh rice noodles. There's also a great hot food counter, so you can have lunch while you're there. Yekta is a Persian grocery store in a strip mall in Rockville, just off Rockville Pike, right near the Twin Brook Metro. I love going there. You can find great feta in brine, Barbary bread, which is a kind of Persian kind of flatbread, and this great Persian ice cream from a company called Saffron and Rose that makes this saffron pistachio ice cream, and also great like fruits, nuts, and herbs. Those are a few I love that are right on the metro in the suburbs. In DC proper, I mean, there's great Ethiopian groceries. Eshet Injera on Kennedy Street makes their own injera. It's a great place to buy Ethiopian bread. Habesha Market on 9th Street, just south of U Street. You can get a huge range of spices. You can get injera there too. You can get this kind of snack that I love called kolo that's like roasted salted barley. So those are a few places. And then there's also some great Latin American grocery stores in DC, Pan Am on 14th Street, El Progreso on Mount Pleasant. And I like getting, tortillas there, plantains, Central American products. So those are great places. And then people probably know about this one, but Hana Japanese Market and sort of Adams Morgan right on U Street. Although apparently that building is now for sale. So the future of that place is somewhat in question.
What do you think it would take to get more of these kinds of stores like this in DC proper so that we're not having to plan a whole trip and go to the end of the red line to get to them?
It's tough to say because I think, it partly depends on these kinds of like large scale retail spaces that might be a little bit hard to come by. It was interesting to me that the mayor's task force and the deputy mayor for economic development recognized that as enough of a problem that they're actually like talking to some business leaders to try and arrange for a traditional Asian grocery store, possibly something like an H Mart in Chinatown. It's interesting that the city does recognize that it's a problem and that it might have to sort of help make this happen because it clearly hasn't happened naturally. Because I think a lot of us would appreciate it, not just the people who depend on it every day, but people who, like to cook new kinds of food all the time and like to experiment a little bit in the kitchen. I think it would benefit everyone, basically.
We did an episode a while ago about the mayor's task force on Chinatown, and it's exactly what you said, right? I think it came out in April, and the conversation really was around that Chinatowns are important for the culture of DC, but they're also important for everyone. And so if you're thinking like, well, what do I care if there's an expansive Chinatown? It actually really makes a difference for the thriving culture of DC that we all care about and love.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the cities that have really vibrant Chinatowns where either there's sort of certain kinds of housing that's been affordable for a long time for like senior citizens, like New York's Chinatown or the one in San Francisco, they've worked really hard to preserve that housing and to keep some of the small businesses alive. And I think there's some of the liveliest and most exciting neighborhoods to visit in the country. And I mean, ours is just not really like that anymore, unfortunately. And one thing that I think could kind of restore some of that is just having like fresh produce available and kind of like Chinese specialty goods available. I think that would really just bring a little bit of that same energy that I really appreciate about New York's Chinatown.
Well, to that end, like, why do you think it's important to have spaces like this where folks can get those kinds of groceries and goods beyond just like being able to get the ingredients that you want to make whatever food you want? Like, what do these places do for our community?
For one thing, they can be kind of gathering places. I mean, when you look at like the fact that this charter bus from Wah Luck House in Chinatown takes seniors who live all in the same community together to go shopping. In the WMU story, they're described as like singing on the bus together. I think like, it's a community activity. And so them taking the bus ride together might be kind of fun, but ideally they would be able to just like gather in their local grocery store near their home and get high quality ingredients that are healthier, fresher ingredients and not have to get up into a bus once a week every time they want to just do regular grocery shopping. I mean, I think access to fresh ingredients, fresh produce, and ingredients that are important to you and what you cook is an essential aspect of living in the city for me. So,
just out of curiosity, Ike, how did you find some of these spots?
Well, as a food writer here at Washingtonian, I do a lot of exploring in my car, to be honest, when I'm out in the suburbs, but also on foot throughout the city. And if I go to a neighborhood to eat in a restaurant, I'll often look around the local strip malls or the local back streets and look for grocery stores too. I just think, complementing eating out a lot with trying to shop for new things that I haven't bought before, or just kind of exploring those markets is a big part of what I do too. So I found Yekta, the Persian grocery store in Rockville, because it's very near A&J, which is an excellent Chinese restaurant that if you don't know about, you should definitely try.
Well, Ike, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you around the markets.
Yes. Thanks, Bridget. I appreciate it.
That's all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not share it with your grocery shopping buddy? You can rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. Talk to you then.